Hello students. Okay, great. So in this class we are going to read about verbs. Okay, so are you ready? Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's begin. Uh, just wait. Right. Yeah. Big verb. Okay. So first let's talk about definition of verb. Okay. What do you think? A verb is a word that expresses action, makes a statement, links relationships. Okay, that is clear. A verb is a word that expresses an action and makes a statement and links relationship. Okay, clear. Okay, now comes to the next part. So we can divide verbs into two broad categories, that is finite verbs and infinite verbs. Okay, so first we will talk about finite verbs. Okay. A finite verb is considered transitive or intransitive depending upon its relationship with some other words in the sentence. Okay, so a finite verb is maybe transitive or intransitive. Okay, so first of all we will read about transitive verb. After that we will continue with the intransitive verb. Okay, so next, transitive verbs. Okay. A transitive verb has two characteristics. What are they? The first is it is an action verb, okay, expressing a doable activity. Doable activity means which we can do, okay, like kick, want, paint, write, eat, clean, and etc. Right? So transitive verb is it is an action verb which expresses doable activity. Okay, like kick, want, paint, write, eat, clean, etc. Okay. So next is second characteristic. The second is it must have a direct object. Okay. Just remember, it must have a direct object, something or someone who receives the action of the verb. Okay, so here it will be definition of direct object, that is something or someone who receives the action of the verb. Okay, now comes to the next part, that is examples. Okay, look at these sentences. He met her yesterday. She wrote a story last year. Rust destroys iron. In these sentences, the verbs are the words make, okay, wrote, destroys, right? In each sentence, you have to ask the question, okay, whom and what. Okay, just ask the question. So, the answer would be in sentence 1, the question is he met her yesterday. Okay, so met whom? Her. Right? Met whom? Her. Answer is her. Look at the sentence 2. She wrote a story last year. So wrote what? Wrote a story. Right? Yes. Look at the sentence 3. Rust destroys iron. So the question is destroys what? Iron. Okay? So we use whom in the question for human beings and what for things and also for animals. Okay. So now look at the examples. Okay, again, and ask questions like that. Okay. The words her, story, iron in the sentences above are called objects in the grammar. Okay. These all are objects. her, story, iron, these all are objects, right? Okay. Comes to the next part. So a transitive verb is therefore a verb which has an object. Okay. So remember that a transitive verb is a verb which has an object. Okay. Clear? Okay. Now comes to the next part, that what is an object? So an object, we may say, it's the aim. Okay, is the aim or purpose or the destination or the target of a verb section. Okay, so if you have to find the object, okay, in any sentence, then you have to find its aim, purpose or destination, okay, or target of verb section. Okay, clear? Okay. Now comes to the next, that is, in our three example sentences that were in the last slide, the verbs met, wrote, and destroys have the words her, story, and iron as their targets. Okay, that's why these all are objects. Okay, so these targets are called objects. Now it's clear, right? Okay. So with a transitive verb, we can expect these objects. Okay. Now comes to the next, that is, why are they called transitive? Okay, so you have just 1 minute, find the dictionary meaning of transitive. Okay, you can use dictionary. Yeah, great. Yes, we call these verbs transitive because these verbs have the property of transitivity. Okay, transitivity, like this, flow. Okay, so what is transitivity? To transit means to pass through. Okay, transit means to pass through. Okay, clear? Each of the verbs that were met, wrote, destroys, in our examples has its action conveyed or carried to the object. Okay, we might also say that the action begins with the subject. He, she, rushed in our sentences, and the passes through the verb to the direct object. Okay, the rushed. What was the sentence? Just wait a minute. So the third sentence was rust destroys iron. So in this, rust is a subject, destroys is a verb, and iron would be our object. Okay, clear? Now comes to the next part, that is, we might also say that an action begins with the subject. He, she rushed in our sentences and passes through the verb to the direct object. Right? So this property of verb is transitivity. This is called transitivity. Transitivity. Okay, hence we call these verbs transitive. Okay, understanding these verbs in this way helps us to remember what they are. Okay, so it helps us in choosing the verbs as transitive or intransitive, right? So now comes to the next part, that is our list of transitive verbs. Now look at these verbs like eat, drink, read, write, play, see, hear, answer, find, love, like, understand, catch, bring, sing, make, give, take, get, forget, buy, sell, pay, help. You can find many verbs like this. Okay. Now come to the examples. The teacher answered the question. Okay. So in this, the transitive verb would be answered and the object would be questions. Okay. The next, my friend bought a house. So in this sentence, bought would be verb and house would be object. Clear? Now look at the next sentence, that is the children. The children found the money. So in this sentence, found will be our verb and money would be our what? Object. Right? Now look at the next sentence, that is most Indians love cricket. Okay. So in this, love is a verb and cricket is object. Clear? Comes to the next part, that is E. The Robinson like football. So in this, like is a verb and football is an object. Okay, clear? So in these examples, you have to tell me. Okay, Sylvia kicked John under a table. So the verb would be kicked and the object would be Juan. That is our direct object. Okay, direct object and indirect object. So this is our direct object. Joshua wants a smile from Lee. His beautiful but serious slap part. Okay, so in this sentence, wants would be transitive verb and smile would be our direct object. Okay, clear? The next, Corey painted the canvas in Jackson Pollock fashion, dribbling bright colors from a heavily soaked brush. So in this, the verb would be painted and the direct object would be canvas. Clear? Okay. Now come to the next part, that is Alicia wrote a love poem on a restaurant napkin. Okay. So wrote would be our transitive verb and poem would be our direct object. Clear? In the next sentence, Antonio eats lima beans drenched in brown gravy. Okay. So eats would be our transitive verb and lima beans would be our direct object. Now comes to the next part, that is our Pinky the Poodle. Pinky the Poodle cleans the dirty supper dishes with his tongue before Grandma loads the pre-washed items into dishwater. Okay, so in this we have cleans and loads. Okay, we have cleans and loads. There are two transitive verbs and then the direct objects would be dishes, right? And what? Items. Clear? Okay. Now comes to the intransitive verbs. Okay. So intransitive verb, it is when there is no any direct object. Okay, when there is no any direct object which follow the action verb, then this verb is called as intransitive. Okay. Clear? The definition should be clear to you. When no direct object follows an action verb, the verb is intransitive. Okay? Now, it has two characteristics. The first, like the transitive verb, it is an action verb. Okay, so it is also an action verb which expresses a doable activity like arrive, go, lie, sneeze, sit, die, etc. Clear? The second we have unlike a transitive verb, okay, it will not have a direct object. Okay, you have to remember this. It will not have a direct object receiving the action. Clear? Okay. Now comes to the examples. Okay, so walk, jump, slip, sit, lie, stand, weak, nail, fall, fly, flow, remain, die, belong, wait, come, go. These all are intransitive verbs. You can find many others also. Okay. So now look at the examples in sentences. Like we walk to the railway station. Okay. So here, the children jump with joy. Babies sleep for many hours. My brother stood there Jesus wept. Okay, the next. Okay, now you have to identify the intransitive verb, that is huffing and puffing. We arrived at the classroom door with only 7 seconds to spare. Okay, so where is the verb? Just find out. Arrive. Okay, so arrived would be our intransitive verb because in this sentence there is no any direct object. Okay, in this sentence there is no any direct object. Okay. Now look at the second sentence, that is James went to the campus cafe for a steaming bowl of spread eyeball stew. Okay, so in this sentence where is the verb? Went. Okay, where is the verb? Went. Okay, so went would be our intransitive verb, and look at this sentence again. There is also no any direct object. Clear? Okay. Now read the next line, that is to escape the midday sun, the cats lie in the shade under our cars. Okay, so in this lie would be our intransitive verb. Okay, around the faced ground paper, Sale sneezes with violence. Okay, so in this sneezes would be our intransitive verb. Okay, in the next sentence, in the evening, Glenda sits on the front porch to admire her immaculate lawn. Okay, so in this, what would be our verb? Sits. Okay, so in the next line, that is next example, flipped on its back, the beetle cat Clara soaked with insecticide dies under the refrigerator. Okay, so in this sentence, where is the verb? Dies. Okay, between insecticides and under. Okay, now there are also exceptions. Okay, like you will find transitive verbs used intransitively without an object, like they are eating, we play in the evening, I understand. Okay, okay, exceptions in transitive verbs, like at rare times intransitive verbs are used transitively. Okay, this is a bit confusing, but you have to understand, right? So look at the examples. How did you cover all that distance we walked it? Okay, so here we can find that walk is a verb and there is no any direct object, so it will be our intransitive verbs, but it is used as transitively. Okay, walked has the object it in the sentence and the verb is intransitive. Okay, the next sentence is I cannot stand such nonsense. So stand has the object nonsense in the sentence. Okay, so there are also exceptions can be used as both, like realize that many verbs can be both transitive and intransitive also. An action verb with a direct object is a transitive, while an action verb with no direct object is intransitive. Just remember that. Okay, you have to remember this, that an action verb with a direct object is transitive, while an action verb with no direct object is intransitive. Clear? Okay. Now comes to the next part, that is some verbs such as arrive, go, lie, sneeze, sit and die are always intransitive. It is impossible for a direct object to follow. Okay, so these verbs are are always intransitive. Okay, these are always intransitive. Other action verbs, however, can be transitive or intransitive depending on what follows in the sentence. So, okay, so it is dependent on the sentence, that we can say that this verb is a transitive verb or this verb is an intransitive verb. So it always depend on the sentence. Okay. Okay. Now look at the sentences. Because of the blood sugar problems, Rosa always eats before leaving for school. Okay. So it's here is an intransitive verb. Okay. If there is no leftover pizza, Rosa usually eats whole grain cereal. Okay. So in this, eats would be transitive verb and cereal would be direct object. Okay. So now look at the both sentences. In the first sentence, okay, it would be our intransitive verb. Okay. But here in the second sentence, it would be our transitive verb. Okay. So remember that the verbs, it can be both transitive or intransitive, but it is dependent on the use. Okay, on the use in a sentence, that how we are using this in a sentence. Okay. During cross country practice, Damien runs over hills, through fields, across the river and along the highway. Okay, so runs would be intransitive verb. Okay. In the next sentence, in the spring, Damien will run his first marathon. Okay, so it would here it will be will run would be transitive verb and marathon will be direct object. Clear? Okay. So you have to note that besides transitive and intransitive verbs, we have linking verbs also. Okay, in the finite verbs family. So now comes to the linking verbs. Okay, verbals, like verbal is a form of a verb used as noun, adjective, or adverb, like this. Verbals is another name for non-finite verbs. Okay, like the important questions are: what are non-finite verbs? Why are they called verbals? What are the things to learn about them? Okay, so now comes to that part. Simply put, non-finite verbs are verbs which are not finite verbs. Okay, these are completely opposite of finite verbs. Okay, so looks very simple, but it's not entirely so. Yes, it is not entirely so. Okay, so the basic point of difference between finites and non-finites are as follows, like this. A non-finite verb does not change according to its subject as finite verb does. Okay, so remember that finite verb changes according to its subject, but a non-finite verb can't. Okay, example: he likes to drive, and there they like to drive, right? The non-finite verb to drive remains constant, while the finite verb like likes, like, okay, changes. So according to the subject, he or they. Now look at the both examples. In the first example, he likes to drive. Okay, so here it would be our what? Finite verb, and the here drive would be our infinite verb. Okay, so now look at the finite verbs like likes. In this, the subject is he, so that's why we have used likes. Okay, in the next sentence or next example, they like to um, wait, just wait, I'm finding my mouse. Okay, they like to drive. Okay, so in this sentence, now look at the use of like. So likes have changed into like because of the subject they, right? But drive is constant. Okay, it has not changed. So comes to the next part, that is second difference. So non-finite verbs are not affected by tense changes. Finite verb are. Examples: they like to drive, they like to drive. Okay, The finite verb shows two different forms, like or liked. Okay, for simple present and simple past tense. But drive. Okay, it has no change according to the tense. Okay, clear. So for the non-finite verb, to drive, tense is irrelevant. Okay, tense is irrelevant. Okay, why are non-finites called verbals? Why? Because we often call the different types of non-finite verbs a verbal something depending on the non-verbal like work they do. Like, so the word verbal becomes a kind of generic or common name for them. Okay, there are three types of verbals, non-finite verbs: the gerund, okay, and it is also known as verbal noun. The participle is also is often called as verbal adjective, and the infinite does the work of noun or an adjective or an adverb. Adjective modifier, purpose modifier, etc. Right? So we usually don't call the infinitive or a verbal noun or a verbal adjective only because we don't want to confuse it with the gerund or the participle. That's why we call them as verbals. Okay. So next part is our infinitive. So infinitives would be are one of the three groups of non-finite verbs also called verbals. Okay, so we shall look at this particular type of verb from three angles. First, how it looks, its form or morphology. Second, what work it does in a sentence, its function or syntax. Third, its meaning or semantics. Right. So how can we recognize an infinitive? Its form is usually as follows: to eat, to drink, to play, to be, etc. Okay, just remember the pattern, just observe the pattern. To eat, to drink, to play, to be, like this. Okay, so with or to before it. Clear? With or to before it. In some cases, the word to is dropped. Okay, so we speak of such verbs where there is no to with the word to dropped as bare infinitive. Okay, so the verbs which has no to would be called as bare infinitive. Clear? So the bare infinitives is the standard form of an English verb. Okay, so what work does it do? Now look at its work. According to function, that is the work it does in a sentence, it may be both noun and a verb. Okay, here is an example. I like to finish the work quickly. So in this sentence, the infinitive to finish, okay, does the following jobs. What? It is the object of finite verb like, okay. Therefore, to finish is similar to noun, right? Because the being an object is a noun's job, right? So in this sentence,